So the big question is this: how do aspiring real estate investors like us escape from the rat race and build real wealth and freedom without access to millions of dollars in investment capital and start to live the life that we know we deserve? This is the question, and this podcast will give you the answer. My name is Zack Childress, and welcome to Real Estate Investing Talk Show. All right, so let's start off with the very first thing. When we're looking at to determine what a property is going to sell for, which is known as an ARV, after repaired value, meaning if I'm going to go put $5,000 into that property or $100,000 in that property, what will that property be worth once I've put that work in? The very first thing we have to do is we have to identify what is called the per square foot average resale price. The per square foot average resale price. Not what John sold his house down the street for is what I should sell mine for, but what is the per square foot average resale price? We find that by looking at 3 sold comps in the same street or same neighborhood in what's known as like in kind. Meaning if I'm looking at a ranch 3.2, I want to find other ranch style houses that are 3.2s, not 2 stories that are 4.2s, not a 3.1, but 3.2s. And here's the rule of thumb. We do not want to go wider. We want to go further back to identify what that price is, because the wider we go, the more unrealistic that price point could be on the average resale square foot price, because we could move into different school zones, we could move into different subdivisions, which could be different builders. There's a lot of things that could happen when we go wider. So we try to stay within a 1/5 of a mile radius, and then maybe, we might push out to, I don't know, 1/4 of a mile radius, or even a 1/3 of a mile radius. But we try to stay real close, within that. I'm looking for on the same street, just bottom line. That's what I'm looking for. But if I can't find it, I'll look in the neighborhood, but I keep my radius tight, and I'll start with 3 months, then I'll go to 6 months, then I'll go to 12 months to identify other like in kind. Remember, if I've got a ranch style property, I want to find ranch style properties. If I've got a property without a garage, then I want to find other properties without a garage. And that's where I will go further back to identify those, to find those 3 sold properties. Remember, value is dictated by what someone will pay, not by what someone wants. Okay, so we're identifying sold properties. On the other side of that is you might end up with, say, 6 properties that have sold that are of like kind, ranch style properties, 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, similar square footage, but you might see a huge variance. Like you might see some selling for $80 a square foot, some selling for $90 to $95 to $100, and then you might see on the higher end some at $115 or maybe $120. My rule of thumb is always take off the lowest and always take off the highest, and then average out the middle. It gives me a better idea of what the majority of people are buying properties at, okay? Now, I might look at the higher end ones that sold for $115, $120 and get an idea, like what did they do to that property to get such a higher value on that asset? And so that might have some bearing on me, but for the most part, I'm dropping the low and I'm dropping the high and I'm averaging out the middle to get what is called an average per square foot resale price. Okay. Now, once I have that number, let's say that number breaks out to $95 a square foot. I'm going to take that number and multiply that by the square footage of the property in which I am looking at to get what's called a estimated ARV. But that is only one part of the equation, okay? That is only one part, because we refer to that as an asset value price. So the asset might be worth $200,000 based on using those parameters and that equation to get to the asset value. Now, on the second side of that is that just because the asset value might be, $200,000, well, that does not mean that that's what I'm going to sell it for. and I know that might confuse you, and this is where a lot of people go wrong. They don't do these other 3 steps. They just go there and they run with there, or they get a CMA report that says, hey, the average resale price per square foot is $95. They go, okay, well, that times my property, that's what it should sell for. I should get $200,000. But a lot of times people in the investing world, because they don't do the other 3 things, they find themselves in a particular situation that the property's not selling, and now they have to start dropping the price because they did not price it right based on part 2, the affordability or the affordability price range. And the affordability price range is just that. So your asset may be worth $200,000 based on the average price per square foot in that area of like and kind properties. But let's just say in this neighborhood, you looked at all the overall sell prices and they're coming in between 140 and 180, meaning that all the houses that are selling in that area might be selling at $95 a square foot, but nothing is selling for more than $180,000. Everything that is sold has sold from 140 to 180. That's called affordability price range, meaning that is the price point that the people buying in that area are capable of buying. So if your asset value is $200,000, well, you're overpriced for that neighborhood. Your affordability price is too high. So you have to think about that when you're now pricing your ARV. You have to really dig in and say, look, the asset may be worth $200,000 based on the average square foot resale price, but no one's paying more than $180,000 in this neighborhood. See, that's what'll save you some money from not making that mistake, okay? And I say that because when I'm running my numbers, I'm not going to use 200,000. I'm going to look at the 180. That's the most any property is sold in that neighborhood. And somebody will say, yeah, but Zach, it's a smaller square footage. Probably. But here's the point I'm making. You have to also understand this. The larger the house, typically the less per square foot you're going to get because it's a direct reflection of affordability in the area. Not just because that's what you want for it or that's what you think you're going to get for it, but you really got to dial in those 2 understandings. Price per square foot and affordability. So I'm going to run my numbers on 180. I might push it a little bit. I might go to 185, maybe 189 to see if I can't push the affordability in that neighborhood because the house is bigger. I'm going to really fix it up, make it really look good. I'm going to look at those things. But if you really hone in, and I'm going to talk about 4 things with you today, but the first 2, if you really hone in on those 2 things, you're going to have a really good idea of how to be safe when you're pricing out a property for resale so that you can make sure you get in and you get out and you get paid. Okay. So, all right. Top 2 we've covered. Here we go. What we got in here? Manny says, Zach, what is a due diligence fee, a due diligence fee, non-refundable, a due diligence. I'm not sure what you're trying to say there, Manny. Shelly from Salinas is in the house. Susan is in the house. Susan, what is going on? I've sent you so many texts and I'm not getting any response back from you. I'm worried about you, Susan. I hope you're okay. All right. Oh, Guy is in the house. Love it. Guy is in the house. So I got my title company pinging me right now about clear title, ready to close. Love that. Mandy says, what is the formula for the affordability? There is no formula. It's just identifying. So, for example, when I'm finding the after repaired value or what we call the average resale per square foot, I drop the bottom, I drop the top to find out what the average is between what's left. But affordability is I look at everything that's sold in that neighborhood. It might be 15 houses, it might be 20 houses, but I'm looking at everything inside that neighborhood. And if I see things like from the low end, they're selling for 140 and at the most anything sold in there is for 180, then out of all of those houses, that is the affordability range. I hope that helps you, Manny. Michelle says due diligence. Yes, I've never heard of a due diligence non-refundable fee. Never heard of that. Ari's in the house. Hey, hey, Ari, thank you. Joshua Jackson joined us. Love it. So guys, So we're clear. The first two things is we have to find the per square foot resale price, which we talked about that and how to do that. The second one is we have to find the affordability price range so that we don't overprice our property based on what people are actually paying for in that area. And that is very important that you get those two down. Now, let's talk about number 3 and number 4, because number 3 has a lot to do with just staying safe, and number 4 also. But number 3 is about looking at trend pricing. What is the trend in that area based on pricing? And so what do I mean by trend? Well, every market has ups and downs, right? The real estate market has an up and down. Every state has a trend of up and down. Every city has trends of up and down. But you can even fine tune that down all the way to the neighborhood, the subdivision, the segmentation. They even have trends up and down. And so one of the things that we're always looking at is if I'm moving into that area, I know my average price per square foot. I know my affordability index. I'm staying inside of that, but I'm going to now move over to the trend pricing. And I'm going to look at every property that has been sold in that area for the last 6 months. What did it list for and what did it sell for? And so let's say they're listing $100 a square foot, but that's what it listed at. It's called the LP, list price, on a CMA report. And then you'll see the SP, the sold price, on a CMA report. What did it sell for? It listed for 100, but it sold for 95, which tells me that the pricing trend over there is actually going down by 5%. So I want to make sure that I'm leaning more towards that pricing trend, and that I'm making sure I'm staying in the awareness that, look, whatever is being listed right now is not being sold for it. So meaning that they're buying it for less than list price. And is that congruent with all the listings? If there's only a couple in there that sold for less, then they're probably, that property needs some work, or they found something in the inspection, so they dropped the price. But if the majority of them are selling for the same price as listing or greater than, then we know it's still a hyper seller market, meaning that the sellers are in control. It's a demand for housing and there's not enough of it. But it's something you have to track, list price versus sold price, to identify trends. And are the prices dropping, or are those prices rising, to help you identify if I'm going to get a bump in my sell price when I go to sell it. And that's why we get a property appraised before we ever sell it. So anyways, that's number 3. So you understand, we have to understand the price per square foot resale. Price per square foot resale price. We have to identify the affordability index, and are we priced inside of there? And this third thing is we have to look at the trends in pricing. Are they going up? Are they going down? Are they being sold for the same price they're being listed for? These are very important to help us really get a clear message on where we're going. Okay. Now that takes us to number 4. And so, hold on, I got some questions here. Due diligence is in it when you ask for extra time on the contract, but is not refundable. Okay, so one of the things that we do in our contract, Manny, so that we don't have to worry about this, is we always put in our contract the rights to extend the closing is always in there. Now, you can pay for what's called an extra time for inspection. So let's say you got a 14-day inspection period and you didn't get it done. You could go in and say, look, I need another 7 days, and they might grant it to you, or they might say, well, look, you need to put another $1,000 in escrow and it's non-refundable. So those are some avenues. And really, if you're outside your contingency period, none of it's really refundable, because you've already exceeded it, unless you can get the seller to comply or agree to extend the contingency period, which is your inspection period on the property. So, but we try to negotiate or conversate that without having to pay a non-refundable fee. That's why in our contracts, we always put in there extension periods. So if something like that arises. All right. So number 4, guys, is really this. If we follow this trend to find the key to ARV, we have identified the per square foot resale price. Okay. We've identified what the affordability price is in the area. We've now identified what the pricing trend is in the area so that now we can say, okay, well, look, here's what the asset value is. That asset value fits inside the affordability value in the neighborhood. And I've identified the trends in pricing so that I now know that the pricing or the market's not going down. It's either staying consistent or it's going up in the close price. But the other thing, the last thing is we have to look to see who's buying, right? Like who's buying in this area. And that is very important because a lot of times investors will get into a situation where they make a huge mistake when it comes to buying a property in the wrong area. And that is something that I want to get clear with you guys on. Is because you're looking, see, and it's really important on all levels, because if I'm looking at an area and I'm looking at sold properties, I'm trying to also identify, were those sold properties to cash buyers or were the majority of them to finance buyers? So if I'm going to be flipping a property, all of this is important to me. But also what's important to me is who are the buyers. For example, if I'm looking at 20 sold properties in the area and 16 of them were sold to a cash buyer, which means only 4 of the sales were to a finance buyer, which means that's my buyer pool. That means that if I've looked at 20 and only 4, that means 20% of the buyers who have bought in that neighborhood were my targeted audience, which means I only have 20% market share that says I'm going to sell my property to the end buyer that I'm looking for, which is a first-time home buyer or, a second-time home buyer. That is not a good sign. I would not feel safe going in and rehabbing a house when only 20% of the buyer pool is my targeted buyer. It doesn't work out because, yeah, they're all, you might say, yeah, but 80% of them are cash buyers who are chasing the same buyer. Yes, exactly. 80% of the people who've bought are chasing the same buyer, which means you're going to have an influx of properties coming on the market with a little bit of the buyer pool that's out there buying, which means you're going to be in a heavily competitive area, which means you've got to be even more competitive on your pricing. You've got to be able to put a better quality property on the market at a lower price point. And if you can do that, competition doesn't matter. But those are really the 4 things you've got to be clear on. Price per square foot. And we talked about it so that you know how to take that and figure out what your asset is worth. The affordability index so that you can determine that your asset is priced correctly. The trending in pricing so that you know if you're going to end up losing the price you're marketing at because the trend's going down. And who's buying? Who's your competition? And does it make sense to do that deal because of all of that? Manny says, thank you. Got it. No problem, Manny. What's it? Melvin says, greetings to all, and to all a good greeting. Greetings to all. Did I get any real estate questions? I don't think I did. All right. Well, listen, that's really what this is about. If you can master really focusing in and identifying what those 4 things are, getting good at those 4 things, working those 4 things, you will have a huge confidence level when it comes to knowing this is what I know this property will sell for. This right here. Because you followed the process. This is the process right here, what I've just laid out for you. Manny says, Zach, in your opinion, can you give us a class in sellers financing? Can I give you a class? Yeah, I mean, we could do a class. I don't know if we could do it in 30 or 45 minutes, but I'm going to make a note here. But I could walk you through all the different avenues for seller financing and like how there's different ways to do it, from contract for deed to land installment contracts to straight line financing to wraps to subject twos to lease control. There's a ton of different ways to do seller financing. Obviously, it's a preference. It also has to do with what state you're in on which one you can do, but I'm happy to do a live show on that, Manny. Oh, Dave's in the house from PA. Good to have you back on here, David. I think you rolled in right at the last minute here, didn't you? So, but at the end of the day, guys, that's what it's about. If you want to be confident and you want to stay safe when it comes to not getting stuck with a property, these are the things you got to think about. And obviously, I'm throwing it out at you real quick within 30 minutes, but you know, you need to spend more time studying these things, working with your coach if you have one. If you don't have one, get one, so that you can make sure you're bouncing ideas off of them, making sure that they're looking at what you're looking at, and giving you any outside, you know, thoughts or visions or corrections that you might need to get you smooth and get you worked out, you know, as you're going down that wet road. You know, you might be slipping down it. You're getting down it, but you might be slipping side to side. Well, you might want to, you know, get that thing straightened out so you can get there faster, smoother without having an accident. But a lot of this is just you guys doing the work. It's just finding deals and running these 4 processes. What is the after repaired square foot sales price in the area? What's the asset value? What's the affordability price range? What's the trending in pricing? And who's buying in the area? Now you're starting to get a better picture of that area, that market, how to do it, what's needed for you, so that you get real clear on what you need to do next. So, all right, guys, short and sweet, to the point. We got it knocked out this morning within 30 minutes. I love it. Keep you moving on your day, right? I don't see any other questions that have popped up. Make sure I got all you guys taken care of today. Just a short, quick power session with me, right? I love it. Hey, listen, I appreciate all you being on here. Share the stream. I'm sure somebody out there needs to know these 4 things. They're probably doing it wrong. Share it with somebody. Share it with somebody you care. Share it with somebody that might need it more than anything. Remember, make ripples in the water. And the only way we do that is by sharing the information. So I encourage you to do that. I encourage you to get out there. And I encourage you to keep moving forward in your real estate business. Susan, answer my text. Okay. All right. Look, this is Zack Childress, and I'll see you on the flip side. Bye now. You've been listening to the Real Estate Investing Talk Show. I'm Zack Childress, and I'm on a mission to create 10,000 real estate bosses over the next year. Will you be one of them? Head over to my website, reisuccessacademy.com/web class, and register for my free web class where you'll discover how to escape from the 9-to-5 grind and become your own boss in real estate. See you there.